Welcome to What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? I'm your host, Jill Bennett. This is the channel that shares ideas to help you live your best life, because life can be beautiful if you live consciously. Welcome to this episode of What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? To live your best and most beautiful life, you want to have control of your life and be at ease. My guest today is Patrick Barron, the author of Regain Control of Your Life, Counsel to Ease Your Anxiety. Welcome, Patrick.
Welcome, Jill.
Thank you. It's so lovely to have you here today. Patrick is a professional therapist who has been successfully freeing clients for 30 years, don't look old enough, Patrick, from a wide range of psychological and behavioural issues. He has trained in psychological and coaching models, including NLP and developmental behavioural modelling, and is a qualified cognitive behavioural hypnotherapist. Patrick was born in France and he's been based in London for 35 years, and he works with clients both face-to-face and online. I think I've got the wrong teeth in today. Patrick, let's talk first of all, what happens when someone is anxious or stressed?
Well, I'll start with stress. When we are stressed, it's because we don't have the resources to deal with the demands.
Okay.
And it can be real or it can be imagined. So we think we don't have what it takes to deal with what's happening. Anxiety is when we don't know what's going to happen, so we don't know how to respond. Or because we feel bad about that, we also create responses that feeds that anxiety. If we feel bad, we need to have a reason to feel bad. So we may create it, actually.
Yeah.
So a bit like when we are inspired, we feed the inspiration with ideas, more ideas, feed our inspiration, and we've got more idea. In anxiety, it's the same thing, but we've got this tension and we need to feed it with like worst case scenario, but we don't know what it's going to be. So we look for more and nothing comes up. So we feel anxious. It's a physical response, like stress.
Yeah. It's almost self-perpetuating, isn't it?
It is self-perpetuating.
Yeah.
It's this loop, if you want, in between what should be and what is. And what should be is we should know, we should be capable of dealing with the situation. And the reality is we are not. And we always in that gap between the two, and it's felt physically in our guts primarily, thinking, oh my God, I should be able to, and I don't. And primarily because we don't know what we should be able to deal with.
Yeah.
Because if it's, if there is something in front of us and we know how to react, then we do, like animals. Animals know how to fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And it's they know it as a constructive way of dealing with a situation.
Yeah.
And so when you deal with reality, you are less likely to have anxiety or stress because you are dealing with it. So you are constructively taking action, and therefore you're in control.
Yeah. I think for many people that I've spoken to, there are times, aren't there? For example, if you wake up in the early hours of the morning and you can't go back to sleep, you start imagining and worrying about all sorts of things which haven't happened and probably will never happen. But there's something about that early hours of the morning thing when everything is in your mind is blown out of all proportion. I'm not generally a worrier, but if I wake up in the early hours of the morning and my mind clicks onto something, I can start running it over and over and over again.
I started the book with this premise, with this conclusion. Is the world a benevolent place, or is it a frightful place where people are there to get you? And it comes from a series of thoughts that we have, and this becomes the conclusion. But then it's also become the setup you have when you go into the world. So when you go into a room, automatically you look around and you think, are those people nice? Will they accept me? Or are they dangerous? Do they want something from me? You walk in the street and somebody stops you in the street, what we call the charity muggers, for example. Straight away, you know that they want something from you, and you tense, and it happens with some of our friends as well. They call you, they call us, and straight away that they are going to want something, and you tense.
Yeah.
Now, in the morning, you wake up, you realize, oh, it's not the right time to wake up. Why do I wake up? You may not have automatically the answer. So you start to worry about, what could be the reason for me to wake up? And also, you would start thinking about what's happening in your life. Am I in the right job? Am I in the right relationship? Am I in the right life? Is my life going according to what I had planned it to be? And if it's not the case, then automatically you would have material that will, that you will churn. You will churn all those ideas, and it will keep you awake again.
Yeah. I have the philosophy in life that everyone's kind and everyone's nice, because I think generally it's a very tiny percentage of the population who are actually out to get you. But I can understand that if someone's had something happen to them, it's quite hard then not to imagine that more and more and more things are going to happen to you. But I do agree with you. You do all have that friend, don't you, who every time they ring, they're asking for something. They need something from you. It leads quite nicely into another question I've got for you. This whole thing about fitting in, feeling that we fit in. And I explained to you before we started recording this call that as a forces child, I every few years moved on to another location, sometimes another country, had to go to a new school. And as the years went on, if then I wasn't immediately accepted into a friendship circle, I always felt like an outsider. I always felt like I wasn't part of a group, and that I didn't fit in places. Why is it that we sometimes don't feel like we don't fit in?
Well, there is one word which is central to everything, which is belonging. And it's whether it's passive or active. So you belong to your family, you belong to your group of friends, and you don't question it. It's passive. And when you said, for example, that you've got this philosophy that you believe that all people are good and there are exceptions, but you create the world in which you belong. You create the rules. So you are being active in saying, okay, this is what I want. This is my world. This is where I belong. I'm a part of this. And if you create that, then what will happen is that you will go in life gathering evidence for justifying and crediting what you are saying.
Yeah.
So you will find that a lot of people are nice, that a lot of people are good. Instead of watching the news, you may watch, the source of information that, bring you positive news, rather than, there are murders and there are rapes and there are wars and there are poverty cases. And so where you belong can be a matter of choice. And also, when you are in circumstances when you are young and you feel like you don't belong automatically because, as you did, you change from one place to another. What happens is that you build the strength automatically to learn how to belong. So it makes you a networker now because you build the strength of belonging, all the skills which are required,
Yeah.
all how to get in rapport with people, how to get into a group and make yourself accepted. You've built all those little skills which together form actually a capacity for belonging.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, belonging. Uh, we also belong or not to what's being proposed to us from others,
Yeah.
or what we propose to ourselves. So, New Year's resolutions, for example, are a good example of whether you belong or not. You say, "Oh, I'm going to go to the gym this year," and it's a concept that you put out there, but actually it's external to you, and you're not connected to it. It's just out there. It's just a should, but you don't really belong to it. If you belong to it, you're inside it, and you feel, yes, I'm at the gym, I'm feeling good about it. I like the result I get from it. I like the doing, I like the idea of it. Um, and so belonging, yes, can be active, and you can learn to make it active.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Those of us who've been forced into that situation where we've had to make friends again and again and again, you do find it much easier to walk into a room where you don't know anyone and you can suddenly start. I mean, moving to Mallorca is a real example because I didn't know anyone when I came here. My husband had a few friends here and I'd met them. But, I have this huge group of ladies now that I've built a little community and I organize events for them. And, it's wonderful, really. But from
Exactly.
zero, I've got sort of 60 odd people in a WhatsApp group who join
Yeah,
in events that I organise. So you're right, it's a
you,
lovely thing
you
to do.
create your belonging in that
Yeah,
community.
yeah, yeah. Patrick, let's talk a bit more about your book. What made
Mhm.
you write a book?
Ah, well, what happened is that I came to a point in my life. I don't know if we can call it, a midlife crisis or whatever. But I came to think that a lot of people had things in their life that they could see that they have created. Um, Whereas I was wondering, what have I created? Because my skills are to organize information that I gather from people, and building a model of how they work so I can test it with them and see how it works. But that is not out there in the world. I didn't have like a painting. I didn't have, a house that I had built. I didn't have the picture of a family with like children, grandchildren, whatever, that, oh, this is my creation. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write my ideas as an object, what I know from working with clients. And I started with a mind map, and then I started writing sentences, but it was for me what I know. And then little by little it became writing for others. So organizing then the book in a way that uh, matched the way that a session with a client, I mean, sessions, not just one session, but
Yeah,
when you work with a client, they come with a problem, and we look at how it works. Uh, we look at the principles that keep it in place, and then we move on to what we can do to change that, basically,
yeah,
and respecting the system in which the problem works. So how to be strategic about it working in a way which is organic for the person, but respect their system rather than I mean, we're talking about belonging, a solution that belongs
yeah,
to to their system rather than it being imposed from the outside. Because when it does not belong, an idea then becomes a domination.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, so I get the example of going to the gym as a New Year's resolution. Either you belong to that idea, or that New Year's resolution, like for a lot of people, like a diet, or becomes a domination. I should not eat chocolate. But
Yeah.
I like chocolate. Chocolate is my friend. I put it in my mouth. I know how good it tastes. And, so when you have this thing beside you should not eat chocolate, then it becomes a domination, a bit like we've got the people on each side of on the shoulder and saying, you should not do that. And it's saying, go away, I
Yeah.
know what makes me feel good.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so what will people discover when reading your book?
Well, they will discover how anxiety works. I think it's very important. I mean, the feedback I get from people who read the book is that they will each would have a chapter where they'll say, I really like this idea, it makes so much sense to me. It's what makes, the anxiety works, basically.
Yeah.
It's because, yes, I'm not being active. I'm not, or I don't belong, or I don't know what's going to happen. So I tense and I get into bad habits. Like I'm tense, I eat chocolate,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So looking at how all those mechanisms work and maintain the status quo, maintain the anxiety, that's the nature of the book. It's first and foremost to understand how things work.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Life, we can all have the most wonderful life, but life will always throw us curveballs. And how can we learn to accept what happens and look for the good or the learning point in things? Because I believe there's always some good or something we can learn from things that happen to us. How can we find that and move on without just this constant anxiety and worry over whatever it is that's happened to us?
Well, that's the what I propose in the book, which is the solution, if you want,
Yeah.
is that any anxiety, any stress would have tension, because there is this tension between what should be and what is, and we can't reconcile that, So at the core of the issue is the ability to accept. And accept, it's not easy, because you need to accept when you actually tense. And it's a bit like accepting it's taking something when your fist is tense.
Yeah.
And if your fist is tense, you can't grab anything. You can't go for what you want.
Yeah.
You need to learn to actually relax the muscles, so that you can grab what you want. And that is, how to deal with curveballs. You need first and foremost, instead of reacting always, in a negative way, it's to see that they're happening and learning to deal with it in a way where you can not only deal with what's external, but your internal reaction to it.
Yeah.
So how to release the tension, how to accept what's happening, not because you are being passively accepting, not like a victim, but because you know that in order to react in the right way, you need to have the right level of tension relaxation so that you can deal with what's coming at you.
Yeah. 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 Good advice. And how can we learn how to facilitate and manage that natural process and regain control of our life? Because if we're really, really tense and anxious about something, and we may start to try and relax ourselves and feed into some of the processes you've mentioned, but it might keep coming up again and again. So how can we sort of facilitate and manage a natural process to regain that control?
It's all about the feedback that you feed in the system, that you have some control over the feedback. So, if you are hungry and you think, okay, I want to buy some food, you know where the supermarket is. You go to the supermarket. The fact that you progress towards the supermarket, it's, unconscious, but
Yeah.
you going towards what you want, which is going to get some food to deal with your need of hunger. And the practices that you can do for being less anxious and to develop some good habits are all to do with, the feedback that you can create that will help you notice that you are in charge, that you're in control of your life. So, for example, in the book, I give a list of practices that you can do, which are very useful. But you take breathing, for example. You may not have control of the situation around you, but the one thing you may have control of is your breathing. And if you just focus on your breathing and notice that that's what you can control, in itself, you completely change the direction of being a victim, reactive, being in a terrible situation, to rediscovering that you are in control. I have had clients who came in with terrible situation in complete state, and where we did not even talk, we just work, focused on breathing
Yeah.
and just noticing that being able to control your breathing means you are in control. And when you are in control of your breathing, you can be in control of your body movements, and you can be in control of how you maneuver in the world, and not talking about the problem that they came in with.
Yeah.
When they arrived, we didn't talk about the problem, but they felt absolutely fine dealing with it, and it was not a big deal anymore,
Yeah.
without talking about the problem itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
And
that's such a good point that we should emphasize that. If you look at someone who's anxious, depressed, whatever, their demeanour, their breath will be shallow, their head will be down, their voice will be very flat. And they have the ability to lift their head, to stand tall, to sort of use a much higher intonation in their voice and to
mm,
breathe much more deeply. And just by changing their demeanour, they can change the situation because they feel so much more in control. So I think that's such a brilliant thing to, brilliant way to put it, that they can take over and regain that control quite easily. That's a really good
mhm.
point, actually, Patrick.
And there are many practices that you can do: meditation,
Yeah,
uh, appreciation. Appreciation is huge. You can look at everything. We are in an age of consumerism where, the more, and people have things, and as soon as they get them, they lose their values. They become dead.
yeah,
But practicing, I mean, I take all the objects around me. I mean, starting here, this is my glasses cover,
mhm,
and I can look at it, and it just have no value. I can look at it and say, actually, not only you are kind of nice, it's a happy cover. Oh, you don't see it yet. So it's a happy cover,
yeah,
and you protect my glasses. So
yeah,
that's great. So I'm very grateful to you, and I can take my phone, and it's very easy to think, oh, a phone is just a phone, you know. But you can say, in such a small object, I've got all my emails, all my photos, you know, I've got my music in it. I've got all my contacts. I mean, this is just unbelievable. And I can be very grateful and spend time looking at all the objects around me. I could take my book here because I got it. I could get the book and say, right, I've written it. Next, you know. But you can look at it and start thinking that represents a lot of, you know, work, and it's distilled in the best way I knew, and I got a lot of feedback from friends and a lot of feedback from people. So I can look at the book and connect to all the people who said I really liked, you know, what it provided and you know the difference it made for me, all the inspiration and ideas that you gave me. You know, and you can do that with everything around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So appreciation, very important.
Yeah, I think it's a really big one. Just, you know, waking up every day, especially as you are advancing in years, and just being grateful that you're breathing. You know, so
Mhm.
many people certainly don't reach the age I am. And I think to, yeah, we've got to appreciate life and be really grateful for everything that we have. There is always someone in the world who's worse off than you. And it's
Mhm.
amazed me when I've traveled the world in my job with the Foreign Office, how many countries I've been to where people have so little in their lives and they are so happy. And you
Mhm.
know, places in Africa, in India, I've seen, you know, children running around having fun and they have very little, they have nothing. And it's just wonderful to see how happy they are and how grateful they are to be alive and to have their friends. So I think
Mhm.
gratitude, appreciation is a really, really big one. And I know that you embrace meditation and the principles of Buddhism. And I
Mhm.
certainly find my meditation and journaling, and part of my journaling every day is writing out things I'm, you know, happy and grateful for. Um, it really helps me start my day in a calm way. We shouldn't dismiss that some people really do need help to move on with their lives. But do you think that spiritual practices are a good way to maintain a healthy balance in life?
We talked about belonging,
Yeah.
um, and a spiritual practice provides a context of belonging, whatever your spiritual belief is, whether it's, you know, the Christian God or the Muslim God or Buddhism, or if it's with planet Earth or
Yeah. Or your
whatever
higher
it is,
self.
you belong to, therefore, to a system where you're not isolated. But you know, we talked about the importance of being able to be connected to other people, to something bigger than yourself. Um, it creates also an image of yourself, you know, how you perceive yourself as an identity in relation to the context, in relation to time as well, what's happening to me, not just like in my, you know, 80 years that I'm going to live, you know, if it's the average lifespan, but, you know, through time. Am I just a body? Am I a soul that is going through, you know, various dimension, and I'm learning. I'm learning in this life. I'm learning it through various lives. You know, what is the point of being good, of, you know, developing a harmony in my life, which works, you know, like I think the people around me are good people, or this life is a good life, and you know, other lives are good lives as well. They are learning opportunities. So a spiritual practice is useful, and also if it comes with rituals and things that you do, you become automatically active rather than passive.
Yeah.
And being active is hugely important. That's what I explained, is when you can control the feedback you get from whatever, you know, your experience is. You know, if you are anxious, you are being passive to what's happening, and you don't know what to provide. But if there is something that you don't know, ultimately death, and you create feedback on death, which is just a passage. And I will continue learning as a soul. I will continue belonging to God, the universe, whatever.
Yeah.
Then it's reassuring.
Yeah. No, it's very reassuring. Patrick, who do you think will benefit from your book?
I think it's difficult not to say everyone, but first and foremost, I think everyone who experiences anxiety, and I don't know anyone who does not experience anxiety.
Yeah.
Because I've tried to explain in more detail what I've just explained to you, going through explaining what belonging is, what feedback is, what expectations are, what how to accept, how to deal with stress, how do you measure your resources in the face of demand. So I've got some. It's not an academic book. It's based on my organizing the principle that makes, according to my experience of working with clients. So I give a lot of example of clients and how they benefited. I also give an exercise to either build your understanding or to build a practice which is useful for the book after each chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's good. That sounds good. And I think giving examples is a great way, isn't it? Because people, when they're reading the book, might recognize themselves or their situation in something that's happened to someone else, and then realize that this is what they need to do. How can people get hold of your book?
Well, you can go to any bookshop and order it if they don't have it on the shelf, because that's what they do. You can order it through online at Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or
Okay.
book ends. All the bookshops which are online.
Yeah.
Say, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure that there's a link.
And the book is called again. It's called
Yeah. Show us the cover. That's it. Regain
Regain Control
Control
of Your Life by Patrick Barron.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Okay.
And I know, Pat, that you also offer a 20-minute chat. If people are looking to work with a therapist, they can have a free 20-minute chat with you to see if you're the right therapist for them. So do you want to say a little bit more about that? And then I'll make sure that your email is available for people if they want to contact you.
Yes, I think it's reciprocal. You need to have a good relationship to the people who are going to help you. You need to feel like it's at the right level.
Yeah.
I think I explained it in the book as well. Some people just want reassurance. They just want something they feel good with, and that's all they need, so they can spend a long time seeing a therapist for years, just because that's where they feel safe. Sorry, they feel they can express themselves.
Yeah.
And others, they want like a really fast result. They want to know everything there is to know in one session, and they are just focused on problem solving, so they don't really care about how it happens as long as they get the result. And when we have an exchange, we can judge that, whether we feel good about each other, and whether we feel like there is the expertise to understand what the problem is, and the solution that is being proposed is the one that we feel is what we want.
Okay, great. Patrick, thank you so much for chatting to us today.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.
I love, it's my passion. I love figuring out how things work, looking at what are the principles, why do things work the way they do? And when I see clients, I don't have any judgment on what's happening to them. I'm just like very curious about how do they do what they do, and it can be anxiety. How do they do their anxiety?
Yeah,
Show me.
The mind is a very, very complex thing, isn't it? Very complex.
It is. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you. Good luck with the book. And we'll post all the links up so people know how to get the book, how to contact you. All of that will be in the show notes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Jill. And I wish you all a very nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's show. Check out all the links to the resources mentioned in today's episode and all my freebies in the show notes. See you next time.